Hi guys! Today we're going to be doing lesson 3, which is gathering. Think about this as the food lesson, okay? Think of this as the food lesson. All right, so here we go. Hopefully you were able to complete the picture from yesterday. Here's what it looked like blank. Hopefully you were able to complete it. I'm curious to see what you put as some of the similarities and differences between your house and the Tule house that the Miwok lived in. All right, here we go. Lesson 3, gathering. The women of the Bay Miwok tribe spent much of their time gathering, preparing food, making baskets and mats, and taking care of the children. Oftentimes they call this just gathering because they spend a lot of time just out gathering, finding the things they need. They're not going down to Safeway or Costco to get it. They're literally going out into nature and finding the natural resources that they can find, okay? And mainly this is being done by the woman. Okay, so I'm going to highlight women, and I'm also going to highlight gathering, preparing food, making baskets and mats, and taking care of the children. Basket making. Basket making was an important part of a woman's life. It was a fine art that took a lot of patience and skill. It took months and even years to complete a basket. Wow, guys, years to make a basket. That's a long time. But taking care of a basket could last a lifetime. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to highlight basket making. I'll highlight fine art. And I really think this is interesting. Months and even years to complete and last a lifetime, though. Just basically some highlights there. You don't have to do the highlights. The point is that you're following along and kind of understanding what's going on. Remember, a lot of the baskets were used to hold things like water. And so those baskets really needed to be woven very, very tightly so that the water wouldn't get through. So that is kind of one of the ideas, that it is a fine art, that it was a skill that took a long time to complete. The Bay Miwok women gathered most of the plant food for their families. They gathered food in baskets that the women carefully wove. They were careful to take only what they could use. Most of their food came from the nuts, roots, bulbs, berries, greens, leaves, and mushrooms gathered from the land. Interesting statement here where it says they were careful to take only what they could use. We've spoken often about how the Native Americans were very respectful to the land, okay? So they're not just going to be chopping down a whole tree just to have something off one branch, okay? They're really going to be respectful to that tree, just take what they need to eat, what they can use. So kind of something to keep in mind. So the women are doing the gathering, which we already talked about. I'm going to go ahead though and highlight what they ate, okay? So I'm going to highlight nuts, roots, bulbs, berries, greens, leaves, and mushrooms gathered from the land. And I'm also going to highlight this point about careful to take only what they could use. Again, it's okay if you miss some of the highlights. The point is just to listen and discuss. Now here comes the most important thing of all, acorns, okay? This is a big one. Acorns were the tribe's most important food. Entire villages would travel up into the hills of Mount Diablo in late September or early October to harvest acorns from the oak trees. So these acorns were coming from oak trees. The women and children collected the acorns in large burden baskets that they carried on their backs. So we're talking big baskets. After 2 or 3 weeks of gathering, a family would have as much as 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of acorns. This is a lot. This is like the weight of an elephant, okay? Enough to last them an entire year. Wow. So they're going to gather, women and children, right, are going to gather for 2 or 3 weeks of gathering, 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of acorns, and that can last them an entire year. After carrying the acorns home, they would set them in the sun to dry. Once dried, the acorns were stored in a granary, chaka, for the winter, okay? So then they would dry them, and then they would store the acorns, okay? Acorns needed a lot of preparation before they could be eaten. They were never eaten raw because they tasted too bitter. Instead, they liked acorns ground up and baked into bread or cooked into a hot cereal called mush, okay? So they didn't just pick up the acorn and eat it. That's not what they did with it. Instead, they would grind them up and bake them into things. And we'll actually talk a little bit about mush too, okay? So they definitely needed some preparation. Making acorn mush was hard work. The whole process took 2 to 3 hours. Every time the woman made acorn mush, they had to repeat the same steps over and over again. So here is where we're going to talk about acorn mush. And it's a 2 to 3 hour process. Now your activity today is all about the steps for making acorn mush, okay? So I want you guys to read this part on your own. And then for your activity, you're actually going to be using this piece of paper. Now listen, this piece of paper was in the stack of stuff that I gave your families on Friday, okay? So you're gonna need to find this piece of paper. It even says Lesson 3 Gathering. And you're going to be cutting out the pictures, like this. You're gonna be cutting them out, and you're gonna be putting the pictures in order, okay? So you're going to be reading through the directions, and then you are going to be putting the pictures in order that they happen. So like step 1, step 2, step 3. Hopefully that starts to make sense now. So I just did it real quickly. I've cut out my pictures, and I'm gonna look through them and try and see which one I think would go first. Is it having to do with washing, with hot rocks? That's a really cool part when it talks about the hot rocks. The gathering, maybe the grinding with the mortar and pestle. Could it be the acorns falling from the trees? Or could it be where they are taking the acorns apart? So you're going to put them in order, 1 through 6, okay? And you're also going to color them when you're done. You're just going to glue them right here on the bottom of the page, okay? So go through this, read this. The steps are really interesting to see how they actually made the acorn mush, okay? Enjoy. Your next social studies will be next week. Next week, we will do all the rest of the lessons, lesson 4, 5, 6, and 7, all right?